Hi everyone, welcome to On Purpose with Karina. Today I have my cousin and friend Christina, who's also a counselor and someone who mentors others and someone that I've done life with for years. Someone who's been in my life.
Since day one, guys.
Literally, we grew up together. But also like in ministry and in friendship and and I'm excited for you guys to hear all the wisdom and value that she has to offer. So
very excited.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that the difference between like mentorship and discipleship? Like mentorship is more of like one-on-one, like, and discipleship is like just doing things together, and a lot of times it's like a group setting.
Yeah. No, I think the way I've always, and yeah, the line between like discipleship and like mentorship always get like so like blurred, because it's like, it sounds like you're kind of doing both, but I do agree. Like I do think mentorship, it's all closer to counseling almost in my eyes. Yeah. Like depending on how deep you go and stuff, like, because like I think of like people that I've mentored, like it was like actively meeting up and like very, like intentional and like these really specific conversations. But I do like discipleship, it is slightly more broader. You can mentor within discipleship 100%, like crossover. But discipleship is like literally like we're doing life together. Like I'm gonna go to the store, come with me. Like random things. It's just like life stuff. It doesn't have to be like, ooh, we're gonna sit and do a Bible study. Like it's like, oh, I'm going to store, let's go. Oh, I'm gonna go to this prayer, you wanna come with me? Or like random things like, oh, we're having family dinner, come over. Like I think both are great. I think I have a special heart for discipleship because it's like, it's really down to earth, and it's really like, this is me, my regular life. Like this is me at home. This is me doing these random things, and you're just with me, watching me do it, and we're just doing it together. And it's, I don't know, it's really powerful.
It is, and I don't know if we're being biased, but I feel like it's almost more influential.
Yeah.
Because, it makes me think of like parenting, and how they say, kids don't follow what you say, they follow what you do. Like they watch what you do. It's like the same thing when you're, right, discipling, mentoring.
Yeah.
You could tell someone like, Jesus will change your life. But it's only when they see how your lifestyle is when they're like, oh yeah, Jesus did change your life. Or he could change my life. Or
yeah. And that's why it's like really powerful, like living like, that's what you realize like what Jesus did with like the disciples. It was like, they lived together. Like they did everything together. It's like, yes, there were the masses, and like he impacted the masses to a point, but it's like those disciples, they saw Jesus all the time.
Yeah.
They saw him like perfect and sinless and loving all the time.
Yeah.
When they're tired and they eat all day, And so that's what I love about discipleship. It's really raw and vulnerable, but you have to be okay with like, hey, I'm going to be showing my flaws to this person too. And being like, learning to be okay with that and talking about that. Like I remember the girl that I'm discipling, like she came over our house, and really it was like Sunday dinner or something. It was like a random like Saturday, and so it's like, the chaotic time where like everyone's at the kitchen at the same time. It's like it comes in waves, especially if you still live with your parents. It's like everyone is in the same place at the same time. It's like so rare, and it's like chaotic and something. And like I remember I got upset at one of my siblings. I was like irritated, and like she's there. And she's like watching all our interactions, and I think I like snapped a little bit, or I was like snippy about something, and I was like, oh, she was here and she saw everything. And then I talked to her and I was like, hey, you saw how I like reacted to that. Like I took her aside and we talked about how the interaction went, and I just like debriefed it with her. I was like, hey, like next time I'm gonna do this different. Like it was like, she's like watching me, and it was such a like awareness moment, and I was like, oh wow, like just communicating that and talking to someone of like, hey, like I should have done that differently. This is what you could do. But it was so cool. It was, so I felt a little like, embarrassed. I was like, this is a little embarrassing. But at the same time, I'm like, she's going to learn. She's going to learn, and it's really helpful to take that into her own life and how she is with her family and her parents and stuff. So I was like, here is my life. Here, look how I interact with my family, and stuff. So it was cool, but definitely you have to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to be vulnerable. And it's really humbling too.
Yeah. Like I'm bringing parenting up again, but I don't know. I guess I'm preparing for parenting someday. I'm not a parent yet, but that's crazy that you say that, because I also seen this thing about parenting, like, be okay to apologize to your kids if you messed up, because they're watching you.
Yeah, I've heard
it's
that.
the same thing. So like, that's so cool that you, wow, actually, like,
like,
podcast aside, I'm like, wow, that is so like actually
Yeah.
a sign of growth, I think.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of reminds me of like the moment when I realized that I needed to step aside from counseling and I needed counseling. It was also like uncomfortable to come to my mentees and be like, oh, I'm taking a break because like I need help. Yeah, like I'm not okay.
I'm not doing so great.
And like I'm like, I just hope they don't think like, oh, if my mentor can't do it, then I can't do it. And it wasn't the case. It was like, hey, I am willing to admit like life has its ups and downs, and like and the important thing is to like that you don't settle and you go seek community or help or mentorship or whatever.
No, it's so hard. Well, actually, I'm going to honor you now because you just saw. Which is so crazy was, I remember when we hung out, this was when you still lived here, and you told me that you were getting counseling, and you opened up to me about it, and it inspired me so much, and like you were so vulnerable about it, and I was like, I've never heard of anyone getting counseling before. It was like such a new thing, and like you hear about therapy like in the secular world, and we're always like, no. You know, like most Christians are like, nah, like therapy is secular. There's a lot of like conversations, like there's a lot of like just not drama, but like Christians are very wary of like psychiatry and psychology because they say it's very secular based, and if you do all the scientific research, whatever. Besides the point. But when you told me you were getting counseling by a Christian counselor, it was just something so new that I never heard of, and I was really inspired about that. And I remember I was still like, I was going through things, and I was realizing things about myself, and I was like, man, like I need help too, because I think, you know, a lot of us that we became leaders so young and so early, like God worked in such powerful ways in our life, like no denying. I am so amazed of what God has done in my life, in your life, and so many of us that have been blessed to be in leadership and be in like ministries where we have discipled and mentored. But a lot of the time we didn't get as much of that mentoring discipleship ourselves. Like we were kind of starting it out, and I had mentor figures, but never like actual like hardcore like
weekly basis.
What I was doing for people, I didn't have it myself, but I was doing it. And I remember there was a point where I was like these last 2 years, I was like my New Year's resolution is to be emotionally and spiritually healthy, because sometimes we get so like, we're serving the Lord so much, and we're giving, and we're sacrificing to these people, and we're discipling, and we're giving. It's like, man, and then I looked, and God kind of took that out of my life for a period, and he was like, you have issues, and you have a lot of hurt, and you have traumas, and you have all these things. You've been so busy helping everyone. Who's going to help you? I was like, Lord, I don't want, like, it was so vulnerable, and I had to acknowledge, I was like, man, like, I need help. I need people in my life. I need a mentor figure. I need like, so man, counseling would sound great right now, you know? And so you were the first person where you were like very honest about that. And it was so beautiful to me. And I was like, man, I want that too. I didn't get counseling, but I got a mentor for myself. And I've had a mentor for almost a year now. And again, like I've been in ministry for a long time, very young, but like when you're serving, like I was serving since like 17, and like I'm 22, like over 5 years, like I was in ministry and serving and discipling and mentoring and doing all these things and teens. Like I burnt out. Yeah. And so my heart, like I have a big heart for leaders, especially like, yes, for, you know, obviously like teenagers and young women and stuff, but also like leaders where we were put in like really high positions really early on, where it's like, man, we need support too, especially when you are a leader, especially like even more so, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like you need that support. And so now that I've had a mentor, I'm like, this is life-changing. I'm like even more passionate about what I've done. Like, and I'm even more passionate telling other leaders of like, you know, you can't do this. You can't keep, you know, doing what you've been doing. Like you need support. If you can't get a mentor, get counseling. If you can't get counseling, get accountability, you know, partners or at least peers, some kind of like form of, you don't have to be the one always ministering. Be ministered to. You know, we're so used to, we're such helpers I remember I was talking to my mentor. She convicted me, and I love her to death. She was like, Christina, you need to turn off the helper button. Like, I would talk to anybody. Like, I would talk, like, hang out with a friend. And I would always be, like, trying, like, you tell me about your life. Like, you tell me what's going on spiritually. Like, I was constantly being the one, like,
I get
to say something spiritual to them or, like, encourage them and, like, carry. She's like, stop it. Just be there with people. Like, don't feel the need to always help, to always, like, save the person, you know? Like, and I was like, oh, my goodness. And so I started to watch myself, and I was like, helper button needs to turn off.
That's actually, wow. Tell me if you relate to this. I have found that over time, my relationships or friendships started to feel exhausting to me. And I thought like, oh, I've become antisocial because I'm married now or something. Yeah. What I realized is that helper button, I realized that why I would get so exhausted is like, I didn't know how to just be in a friendship or just be a friend. And like, it's not like I didn't know how to, I would have like fun conversations. It wasn't like always deep, but on the back of my mind, I'm always like, how do I help them? What is their issue? Let me get to the root. And it's like, and it's good to have things, to have like relationships that are on purpose and conversations on purpose.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm like, how do we learn what the boundary is? Because like same for me, I sometimes need to learn to turn off the button and just be like a friend to someone.
Yeah.
And sometimes people don't want you to help or solve their situation. They just want a listening ear. And I realized that my flaw was I was so quick to give advice, so quick to give solutions, rather than just like being slow to speak and just to listen. It was like, it's like really humbling to realize that. And it's like, oh, my relationships are not falling apart, but like I feel exhausted after these relationships, not because the person, but because of me. Like,
I'm the problem. Yeah. When I was like being like, Lord, I'm the problem. It was so humbling. And, you know, it was hard. You know, when you've been like, and again, why I'm so passionate about like talking to other leaders and stuff is like, you know, you think you're serving God and you're doing the right things and you're in ministry and they're good things, you know, and I love my time that I've served. The funny thing is I'm serving a lot less than I have ever been, but I'm actually in a way better place mentally and spiritually than I at my peak of my serving, because God had to really slow me down and tell me, you know, like, get your heart in the right place. And so a lot of us, we have such good intentions, but we're striving and we're serving and we're going ham and we're discipling like 10 people or evangelism, you know, doing these, again, good things.
Yeah.
But we lose ourselves and we lose our identity. And something the Lord kind of spoke to me was, and I was reading this passage, I believe it's in 1 John, and it's so powerful. It's like, I call you friends. It's like, I no longer call you workers. And, you know, and a lot of us, it is easy for some of us to be a worker than a child of God. Like an employee versus a friend. And I think a lot of us were really good workers. But we have no idea how to be children of God. We have no idea how to just be with God and him just wanting to be with us without like all the 5 billion serving things that we want to do, which are good. But I believe I can serve a lot better out of my identity as a child of God and as a friend. And then I can work better, you know, because it's like my heart is so much closer to my Father, right? And I get it versus my boss. Like father and boss are so different, such different perspectives. And the Lord spoke to me that, and I was like, oh my goodness, like I've been an employee for a long time, but I haven't been a daughter.
So was that the moment that you realized that you need to like
step back
as a counselor, get counseling? Was what was like the moment, or was it a situation, or was it a revelation? Was that the moment that you're like, okay, it's time to like?
I think that there definitely was a moment, and I think God was kind of showing it to me several times in my life. Okay. But there was a point where it was like screeching halt. And I think it was during nursing school. I couldn't possibly serve as much as I did before, and I didn't have the time. And for those that don't know, like nursing school is intense, and it's like you're studying hours and hours, and so I had to put a lot of ministry aside. I couldn't go to church as much, And I almost had a crisis of like faith, because I was like, God, I'm not serving you. I'm just doing school and I feel so useless. And and that showed that my identity wasn't in the right place. It was in my serving and my calling. And again, those are good things. But we tend to mess things up when we misplace, who are we doing this for? Myself, because it ended up like I was doing ministry for myself to feel good about myself and feel spiritual, versus of like, oh Lord, like this is my heart, this is your heart. And again, we start in the right place, but we tend to drift over time. So nursing school kind of revealed that, and I couldn't serve as much anymore. And I realized I was like, I'm not doing okay. A lot of issues came up inside of me, things that I was struggling with, that God forced me to sit still in. And like they came to light, and I was like, I cannot in a good conscience go serve as I did before. I need to take care of myself. I need to find a mentor. I need people in my life, accountability. And it was really humbling, and it was scary, when you've been doing something for a long time, you're so used to it. And I was like, how am I supposed to find friends to like actually confess to? How am I supposed to like find a mentor? How do you, I've always been like seeking out the mentees, but I'm like, wait, this is scary. Like me being the mentee and me trying to find someone. I'm like, this is so vulnerable.
Tables have turned.
It was just such a I was like, wow, God, this is really humbling. So it took time, prayer, but God really blessed me. I found my mentor, and we just do life. Like she mentors me, but we also we do life together. We don't just meet up, we hang out. I go babysit her kids. She comes over, I come over. It's, it's not just all official. And there's times where I meet up, I'm like, I don't really have much to talk about. We're just here to just hang out and stuff. And then with the accountability piece, what happened was I got convicted about confession, actually, which is so interesting. So a little context, in our Slavic churches, confession is a very official thing. Yeah. Usually you need a pastor present, and it's very intimidating, at least for me. The idea of confession was very, very intimidating and very scary and stuff. And I remember hearing a sermon, and the way the preacher talked about confession, it was so simple. And it was confess to one another, and I was like, one another, what does that mean? And it's other believers like you. And so I remember I brought up the idea to some girls just to throw it out there. I was like, is anyone in the same boat as me and wants something more in their walk with Jesus? And we're ready to go to the next level of our faith, And two girls were like, me too. We want it. And it was a little intimidating, because I was like, how are we going to do this? What does this look like? And we just meet up once a month. We hang out. We either when we're grabbing food or coffee, we just sit together and we just share during the month if there's something that we're struggling with, a particular confession, and also praise reports. So something that God has answered. And it's been amazing to see our testimonies grow, and things that we were praying for each other about turn around. Wow. And it was so beautiful, and I love it. That. It's so beautiful. And I was like, God, this is what church is about. This is what we're called to have as community. And you're being mentored, you're mentoring, and then you have peers. You realize how God creates the church. It's so intentional. God is so intentional. I'm receiving, and then I'm giving, and then we're celebrating, and then we're also the church. It's so powerful. And so now that God has blessed me with these things, I'm even more passionate about telling people, get a mentor, get counseling. If you need to pay for it or whatever, therapy, do it. Obviously, if you're a Christian, I would encourage a Christian counselor and Christian therapist. But if you can't afford it, there's so many options out there. Mentorship is really awesome. Or, man, you're I don't have any mentors. Peers, people that are on the same journey as you. You're in it together, hold each other accountable. You need it. You're not meant to be doing this on your own. Yeah. A lot of us have been doing it on our own too long.
Yeah, I think the lie of the devil, especially if there's a specific issue, is that you could work it out on your own, or the whole isolation thing. And I'm also, after going through biblical counseling myself, I'm also a big advocate for pushing people to find accountability or biblical counselors, not therapists. I just want to clarify that because therapists that don't, or like biblical counselors have both the psychology and the biblical knowledge to not only figure out what's the psychological response, but what is the spiritual issue. And you need both. They go hand in hand. So what I noticed is when I got married and there was a time where we were switching churches or switching, my ministry was put on hold because we just there was like so much things going on. We were moving. I realized that was the moment where I realized I needed counseling. It was also a similar situation where, because I had less time for ministry, I had a crisis because I realized my identity was in do, go. Packed schedule, hanging out with friends every week, 50 ministries 50 times a week, like work, school, whatever it is on top of that. And once my life slowed down, I was like, who am I? Yeah. And so, and even though some from the outside could say, oh, you're like the most spiritual person I know and all that. And like, even though I was confident in Jesus and my salvation, it was more of like, I realized that I have been so relying on my works for my spiritual growth and relying on my works to feel, like you said, good about my spiritual level or whatever. Yeah. And I was like, it was such a like, all the things that I've been pushing down, like for me specifically was forgiveness for a parent. I realized how long I've been like putting it in the background and like, because I was so busy, I didn't have time to deal with it. But once my life slowed down, I was like, oh, wow, I need to solve this now. If I want to move forward in my marriage, in my growth, in parenting someday, like, this is it. This is the one. And like, it felt like Jesus cleared my schedule, cleared everything. And it was like, okay, now it's you in this situation. What now? And it was like, I had nowhere to hide. I couldn't hide behind a busy schedule or ministry. There was like, okay, fine, Jesus, you got me. Gotta go get counseling.
No. But, and he does that. Like, God is like, you can't run anymore. Like, and it's so true. It's like, you almost feel like you're put on timeout. Yeah. I feel like God it's like, no, stop it. Timeout. And I was like, God, what am I doing? Like, who am I? You know, like, crisis of identity. And I get it. Like, you realize, like, even secular people, like, you hear the whole thing, like, middle-age crisis all the time. Mm-hmm. And it's like, even like people that are not Christian, like, they have crisis of identity too. You know, it's like marriage, kids grow up, boom. What's my life? Who am I? You know, a lot of like married women I know experience it, but like just like there's something about identity that just gets revealed, and like it's in us. God created it for a purpose, and I think with purpose. Like,
I mean, it's like,
so intentional. Like, I don't know, like, I think the question of identity is so important, and we just need to find our identity in the right things. And
so, a question for you. You did mention that you had a moment where you're like, where do I find my community and where do I find a mentor? And I actually talked about this with Andre and any other person I talked to that did end up getting a mentor, counseling, or accountability partner. They always come to this like problem of like, where do I find? So what was your journey of finding your community, finding people that were willing to meet up once a month or a mentor?
Mm-hmm. I think you have to be in church. You know, you can't just come. And again, everyone's situation is different. You have to kind of put yourself out there. Again, my situation is easier than some people's. Like, I was already part of a small group that's been existing for many, many years. So there was that level of community, and I had kind of that support system. But again, I wasn't vulnerable with those girls. And so I had a few close friends and girls in that group that within that group, I asked, hey, do some of you guys want something more than what we have here? Mm-hmm. You know, more than just us meeting, like, and it's a great community, you know, we read together, like, it was kind of like discipleship, but again, like, the raw vulnerability, like, there was still, like, things people weren't being truly transparent about, and it's not to, like, call anybody out. Like, there's just different circles of intimacy that exist. And so I was asking some of the girls, I'm like, hey, this is something I need. So I had to be vulnerable with some of them and kind of pitch the idea and hope like it would stick with someone. And so praise God it stick. Like there were some girls that...
So you had to take a leap of faith and be vulnerable first.
I had to take a leap of faith. I never heard of anyone doing it. I didn't know any of the girls doing it currently. And so they wanted the same thing. So also finding people that are like-minded. You know, the girls that I do accountability with, which is shout out to y'all. You guys are amazing. I love them so much. You know, like almost like co-laborers, almost like we weren't, and we were not all in the same exact seasons of life, you know, but we were in similar like spiritual places. Like we knew the gospel, we were serving, we wanted deeper and more from Jesus. Like there was already basic like knowledge about God, and not to make Christianity about levels, but you know, it was like level 1 has been unlocked. Like we're ready for level 2, you know, like more, we wanted more, we wanted deeper things with the Lord. And so finding like-minded people, you know, they were serving, they had a relationship with Jesus. It wasn't a question of like, I wonder if they pray or read their Bibles. Like it was like, obviously we all are doing that. So again, everyone's situation is different. It really depends where you are in your walk with Jesus, because we had like some years of walking with the Lord. We already had that with us. So it's finding people that are like-minded and wanted the same thing. We want the same thing when we meet together. Like we have the same goal, you know, and we knew like we're going to be raw and vulnerable. It's going to be uncomfortable at times to share what's really going on in our lives. And we had to be okay with that and let that go. And so... again, those are really hard conversations, and it is scary. And again, it's something to pray about and prepare your heart for. So I definitely encourage, you know, don't just find random people and just be like, let me open my deepest, darkest secrets to you. You know, it had to be people that I trusted too. I was like, man, you know, what we confess to each other, this stays between us unless we need more support or there's something really, really going on where you need extra support and help. But trustworthy, like-minded, like know the Lord. So yeah, it's awesome. I don't regret it. But I would say, yeah, you have to be in church. You have to be willing to step out of your comfort zone. It helps if you are already friends with someone.
So if you could elaborate, like why church? You mentioned a couple times that church, it's important that it's within church. Why?
Yeah. I think why it should be within a local church, particularly. Again, one of my friends that I do accountability with, she's not in my local church. She goes to a different church. But it's people that you see, you know, you encounter them. Like where I talk about local church, because I'm pretty often at my church. Like I see these people very often. They know my life. I know their life. There is already like that relationship existing. And so with the local church, it is helpful because you are around these people, you build some kind of level of relationship with them. And, you know, there is also like a level of like, we're all like doing this together, almost like we're part of the same body of Christ. And I see you guys, I know your lives, you know my life. So the local body, when you attend the same church in a local church, it is a lot easier. You know what I'm saying? But again, I know people who, they do it with different people from different churches, and that's totally okay. It is easier when you guys are at the same church, 100%, because you see each other even more, you know? So...
yeah, I do agree with that, because when we moved to Florida, I tried to build community because I was looking specifically for like married women who are in the Lord, and my husband was looking for like married men who are in business but Christian. So we were both looking for a specific community, and like we tried to build something outside of our church, and it was just not sticking. And there was a point where we realized that we were going to a local church. We found one that we liked, and we realized that in order for us to build quality community at a faster pace, because we've already been in Florida for a year.
Yeah.
We needed to dive into what is going on locally. So we signed up for marriage small groups. I signed up for women's prayers. I'm like, that is the only way. And you're right. As we go to these groups and these small groups, like, because within the big church, you could kind of get lost. And it's intimidating to meet people. But in these small groups, you get to know people's family life, their struggles. We laugh, we joke around. You get to know people's sense of humor, people's style of hearing the voice of God and different, like, so, and our church actually does like groups for people, men in business. So my husband also found that community. It was like a blessing from God. And so I do agree with you. Like, the local church, it makes it so much easier because you're already seeing each other like 3 times a week besides just Sunday. Yeah.
For sure. And again, like, everyone's church situation is different. I know some people, maybe you're not a member at a church or you're looking, I do really encourage, don't just come to attend, come to see, come, like, get connected. Try to see if, the community fits for you or works for you. And so, I was really blessed and fortunate where I was part of a small group for a very long time. And so that made it a lot easier. And so I do encourage, if there's small groups, if there's like any kind of like smaller gathering, because again, you can come to church and attend a service and then just go. Like, anyone can do that. You can say hi, but truly, like, getting to know people. What is your life? What does your family life look like? Getting involved in people's lives, it takes time and work. So you can't just appear and like, I trust you. You are my accountability partner. It's like, no, it takes time to build relationships. And so it is hard. And again, it's something to pray about, be intentional about, and know who you're looking for, know what you want, know what you need, have some kind of expectation. It helps. But so, again,
by expectation, you mean having some kind of like, knowing what you want in a group or in a mentor kind of,
have that. Because you need to know what you need, and sometimes the Lord will reveal it to you. Sometimes you don't know what you need, and you're not aware.
Yeah.
And so for me, a lot of it was God revealed it to me and helped me understand what I needed and what I wanted and stuff. Because I was like, I could keep living the way I've lived, but totally fine. I'm like, I attend a small group. That's community for me. But sometimes God's like, no, a little bit deeper. You need to be more vulnerable with people. You need to let people in. Because, some of us, you might be part of community, but are you vulnerable? Because vulnerability is really important too. Because the Bible constantly compares the church to family. And family is very vulnerable and very open. They see everything. My siblings see me all the time. Like, I would say, like,
it's hard to hide it.
Yeah, you can't hide anything in family. So again, I think that's intentional language. Like, there is transparency. And so what happens a lot in churches is we're not like that. We come and we attend, we look nice, and then we go. And so creating family, creating that vulnerability and honesty in the body of Christ, it takes time and it takes sacrifice and it's scary. And so that's why I believe, like, small groups and these it's almost like grassroots to change the whole local church as a whole. You know what I'm saying? Where we all can learn to be like that towards each other. So I think it's really important. I'm very passionate about small groups, all of those things. I think those are really, really cool. So to find your community, I would say, like, get plugged into a small group. It's probably the easiest, I feel like. Or events, like, go to events, hang out.
Yeah.
You have to talk to people. I'm sorry. You have to put yourself out there. You have to say hi. You have to start
somewhere. Yeah.
The awkward, random, like, what do you do for your job? You just go for it, Yeah. So you have to actually socialize and talk to people. Get to know people. But mentor-wise, my situation is a little different. My mentor isn't part of my local church, so she attends a different church. And I prayed, again, prayer. Please pray. Ask Lord what you need. And I made a list, actually. I made a list of things that I was looking for. So, like, a little context. I'm a 20-something. I'm single. I'm a leader. I've served in ministry. So I wanted a mentor that could relate. She's also served. She knows what it's like to serve in ministry. maybe not the exact same, but similar enough. She's discipled or mentored before. And for me, it was important that she was married, unless she already had a kid. Those were 2. And for me, why I wanted my mentor to be married and to already have a kid was, you know, as a single woman, a lot of the time, we need someone to look up to, and we need an example and someone to be able to talk about marriage to. You know, if necessarily you can't talk to your mom or you're not comfortable, you know, finding someone to ask questions, to someone to watch and see their marriage and how they're raising their kids and to learn from them, you know? And so I was really prayerful and intentional about it, because for me, I was like, man, I want to see how someone walks in their marriage. As a single woman, it's so powerful to watch someone's marriage and how they're raising their kid and how they're struggling through it and they're wrestling with it, and to learn, it's so powerful. So I really encourage, you know, again, everyone's situation is different. You know, it's not a requirement your mentor has to be a married woman. But
I think it's someone who's ahead of you in life. Yes. I think that's what you
mean. It really is important. Because you'll learn from them. You'll learn from their mistakes. They'll encourage you. They'll speak life over you. And I learned so much from her. And I already like know what I want in my marriage, and like even raising my kids too. Like I've learned so much from her, and it's really, really important. So, and I remember telling some people, I was like, how are you supposed to learn how to be, you know, a wife or a husband if you have no one that you're looking at? You're just going to be just figuring it out. And it's hard, you know, marriage is no joke. Family is no joke. And so, you know, having as much help as possible is so important, so awesome. So I really do encourage it. So yeah, she was married, she had a kid, and, you know, I had to meet up. You have to meet up and you have to ask. So I think I just kind of approached her and was like, you know, let's grab coffee together. And I just hung out with her just to generally like kind of see her vibe, see how we were interacting. Was it going to be awkward? Was it going to be weird? So we hung out and it was like great. And I prayed about it. I was like, I'm good. I felt like I was almost like Gideon. Like I was laying like little tests out. I was like, I want to see if this person is for me.
I mean, I like that you did that. Because I think some people could get hurt if they jump into like, hey, I think you're my mentor, I'm going to confess. Yeah. I think I like what you did, where you like tested the waters, like, hey, is this the person? I like that. I really like that, yeah.
I think, and it's okay if they're not. Like, it's okay to just test it out. And like there's so many godly women in my life that like, they could have been my mentors, and I love them and I still look up to them. But it's also, be aware of your season and what you need. Maybe if you're like 17, you're like, I don't care about for marriage right now, I don't need her to be married. Totally cool. Find someone who maybe you need like an older sister figure in this mentorship right now. Like for me, like my life's kind of going in a different direction. I'm getting older. There's things that I'm considering and thinking about as I'm getting older and like going through life and stuff. And so that's something important to me, and that's what matters to me. Yeah. And so I tested the waters, we hung out, and then the second time I was like, okay, I want to open up to her about something. I have to be vulnerable on my half. So you have, eventually you do have to open up about something and see. And I was like, Lord, you know, by her reaction, I want to see if like she's going to be a good support for me when I do have to really like be vulnerable and like, because you will, like, if you're being mentored, you have to talk about your issues. You have to talk about really vulnerable things that are scary. And so I opened about something that was truly vulnerable to me, and I just looked at her response, and I was met with so much grace, so much compassion and love. I was like, I feel safe. She felt safe, you know. And so, and again, as women, like for us, safety is big, you know, when we're vulnerable, like, can you like carry my vulnerability? And she was so gracious, so kind, and just was so gentle with me. I was like, I feel like I can open up to her about like other things too. So praise God, I kind of saw her heart, and then I officially like asked her the third time we hung out, and she was super open and willing, and we kind of laid out expectations too. You know, if you are being mentored, always, you know, what do you expect? What do you want? And so we did talk about, hey, like, what is our schedule? What are you looking for?
Like, what is mentorship?
You know, how are we going to do this, you know, and stuff. So you do have to kind of do more. You can't just be like, yeah, you're going to mentor me, and then never text or
Yeah,
chat.
you kind of have to decide, like, is this a monthly thing? Is this bi-weekly? Are you looking for a listening ear? Are you looking for, like,
a friend,
advice?
yeah.
A friend, a sister, yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting because I also went through a few, like, trials of finding a mentor.
Yeah.
And actually over a period of years, like, I had a really hard time finding a mentor. I was open to finding mentorship before I was even married, but I kept bumping into the situation of, like, finding a mentor.
Yeah.
Like, God was, like, kind of, like, revealing to me, like, it's not this person, it's not this person. And I think, I sometimes wonder, why did I find a mentor, like, once I was married, like, many years later? But I think God's time is perfect. And I think it was a time where my life slowed down majorly and I was able to, like, commit to, like, 10 sessions or whatever, like 6 months of counseling. And it was someone, like, for me, it was also not a local, it wasn't even in my local state. It was someone it was over Zoom, but it was a person that specifically they were biblical certified counselor in helping people reconciling with family members. It was just like,
what more do I need?
Yeah, as specific as you can get. But,
so powerful.
Yeah, very interesting.
No, for sure. And, I encourage, it is hard. I have friends where, we talk and it's like, man, I'm still looking, I'm still praying, or they got one, but then it's not working out. And, like, trust in God's faithfulness. God is so intentional. Like, pray and seek. You have to put yourself out there. You have to look. You have to ask. You can't just sit back and be like, Lord, drop me a mentor from the sky. Like, I had to be very proactive. And so I do encourage people, be proactive. And I've recommended people. Sometimes I look at my local church, I'm like, oh my goodness. And I tell them, like, you would be an awesome mentor for someone. They're like, no. A lot of people get scared with the term mentor too. Or like, and I'm like, hey, like, it's just like talking to someone and hearing them out. It's nothing like, I need to be a pastor in
actually so
theology
funny
and ministry. Because a lot of women, I notice, like, especially Slavic women, they're very just meek. And, like, they feel very, I don't know, not that they have low self-esteem, but they don't realize how much, like, power they do have and how much incredible experience they have as mothers, as women. Like, I hype them up now. I see, like, mothers in our church. I'm like, you're amazing. Like, please, like, show women like me, be an example to us. Yeah. There's some really awesome women of God out there, and they're very humble. They're like Tabitha in the Bible, where it's like, you don't know they exist until you run into them, and so honor them.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would say the same thing about men. Like, someone who, like, my husband, I tell him, like, he has, like, certain relationships with younger, like, men, and I see that he's impacting them, or, like, there was a season where he impacted them. I was like, do you realize you just discipled that person? And he's like, no, you're the counselor. He's very logical. He's very unemotional. Yeah. He doesn't really have that helper button. So I wouldn't say he's like, there's something, like, where there's some people where counseling is just, like, it comes just naturally. They don't even try, like us, I guess. Yeah. But there's some people where you don't have to be a counselor to disciple or impact someone. Anyone could impact.
You don't need no credentials.
Anyone. The Bible, like, the Bible talks about how, like, we were called to disciple. Everyone was called to disciple. Not counselors were called to disciple. Yeah. Everyone was called. Every gift was called to disciple. So I would be like, hey, do you realize you're discipling? I try to pinpoint that for him, and he's like, oh, no, that's you, that's not me. But it's like, I want to encourage that, like, men, like, even if you feel like, oh, that's not my gift or that's not my style, hey, if you're taking out, like, a couple teenage guys to, like, talk about life, or, like, go surfing or whatever, and they open up to you about life decisions, that's discipleship, so whether you like it or not.
They just did it. No, I think it's so crazy. Like, so many people I've had to break so many lies over, and just, like, the Lord has had to. It's like, no, like, you can disciple. Yeah. You can be a mentor. Like, you don't need special credentials. You don't need, obviously, a relationship with the Lord and knowing the gospel. It obviously is essential, but there's so many people that they're doing it, but they have no idea that they're doing it, or they're scared off, or they feel like they have to be at this certain, like, spiritual level. And so a lot of my friends, like, we're all discipling, we're all mentoring, which is really awesome. My accountability, like, we're all discipling, and some of us are being mentored. And so it's like, we're living it out. And I don't know, I think it's just so important to speak life over people. It's biblical. There's Paul and Timothy, there's Elijah and Elisha. We see the pattern of mentorship. We see the pattern of discipleship. Jesus discipled. It's throughout the entire Bible. It's biblical, 100% biblical. And I think we just get really intimidated. It's very simple. It's very simple. Yes, you have to be vulnerable. Yes, you have to be open. But man, the fruit and the life change is just so powerful.
Life is too short to...
Yeah.
Life is too short to live for yourself. You get so much more fulfillment and contentment from life when you impact others, or when you're intentional in like what you do and conversations you have, you know. Yeah,
so powerful. But definitely encourage everybody, please, please, please pray about, you know, who can I disciple? Who am I already discipling that I wasn't aware of, you know? For a lot of friends and people, like siblings. Trust me, you older siblings, you are discipling your younger siblings.
If you're an older sibling, you don't realize it. You don't realize that you are discipling. You know, that's so. It's just
it's so powerful, and I encourage it. Like I tell them, like, no, you're discipling your brother or you're discipling your sister. Like you have such a powerful role in their life.
I have a story. So like, there was someone I know who's an older sibling to another person, and there was a situation where, like, it was a group of people and the little brother was there, and there was like the older brother was part of an inappropriate joke or something like that. And then we hear the younger brother, like, let's say the older brother is like 20 plus, and then the younger brother is maybe around like 10, 11. And that joke was repeated. And it's like all fun and games. And I'm like, if only that older brother realized how much of it, like, even the younger siblings don't realize that the older ones are influencing them. It's very subconscious. And, you know, it sucks that we older, like, I'm an older sibling, you're an older sibling. It sucks that we have that, like, we didn't choose to be an older sibling.
No.
But I think there's beauty when you realize there's a little bit of responsibility, and there's a potential for like a really healthy friendship, and being a positive influence. I think it's actually, instead of scary, it's beautiful to be. And like, I'm like, that really broke my heart hearing that story, because I'm like, if only that older brother realized that this younger brother, like, wouldn't you wish that he repeated a certain positive thing than an inappropriate joke? Also, like, I'm like, you should understand he's a boy entering his teens years. Like, these inappropriate jokes are triggers. Also, he's going to think this is okay. And like, you know, like, instead of being the one, be like, hey, you know, there's a lot of inappropriate jokes around. And this is a good way to, you know, this like, or be the one that stops that inappropriate joke, knowing that there's someone younger there, you know, like, I don't know. Like, I think anyone who's a counselor or a disciple, anyone who's like very confident that that's who they are. Let's say there's someone who is out there that's like, yeah, I'm a counselor in discipleship. If you don't have a relationship with your sibling or siblings, I think my opinion is that you need to stop doing what you're doing, or pause what you're doing and look at your relationship with your siblings, because I think that's where it starts. I think for any minister, it starts within your home. Pastor, teacher, any gift, healer, it starts within your home. It starts within your relationships and your family, and then it's outwards, you know.
100%. And you know, sometimes family is the hardest. And they're the worst ones to disciple.
That's why it's the most important.
But it is the most powerful. And you know, even in my life, like, I love my siblings, and you know, our relationships and some of our relationships are still being built on blood, sweat, and tears, and it's still hard and it's still difficult, but you know, it is so powerful because they see you every single day. They see you in your good moments and bad moments, and you know, praise God, I have a really awesome relationship with two of my sisters where, you know, some of it was discipleship / mentorship and just friendship, and it took time. It took a long time. It took a lot of prayers and a lot of me changing, not necessarily even them changing, you know. And I remember I used to I was like a little Pharisee. I just was saved, and I was like going ham on against all sin. Like anything my siblings did was sin. And I was like calling them out, and they didn't even know the Lord, and I was like just like going off on them all the time about this. You're not supposed to be watching this. You're not supposed to be doing this. And like that was actually the most farthest they felt from me, even though I had good intention. Until like the Lord changed my heart, especially with one of my sisters. Like it was like, stop doing that. Just be her friend. Just go hang out. And we would literally just go, walk to a donut shop, sit there, do a Bible study, and just like walk back and talk like about anything, everything. And it was just life stuff. Like every Saturday, we did that for like, I don't know, like 2 years. And that was like when she was just gave her life to the Lord. And it like, I've grown up so much, and I've like changed so much, and she's changed so much. I'm like, I don't even know if half of the stuff I was telling you was like good or not, but like,
that's not what they remember.
It's the relationship. It's like taking the time, waking up at like 8 a.m. on a Saturday. Like, why would you do that? But it was like spending that time with her, pouring, investing. And again, it is hard. Siblings are difficult. They see your flaws, and you see their flaws. And so, the amount of refining that the Lord has done to me through my siblings. Yeah. Now I'm at this place where I tell the sister that I've helped disciple, I'm telling her, like, please call me out. So like, if I said something, please call me out. And so we actually, like, I'm not necessarily even, like, discipling her anymore because she's walking in her own walk with the Lord. But we're now, like, peers. Like, I feel like we're peers, and she's able to call me out. Even my older sister, I'm like, please call me out, and I'll call you out, because we're here to push each other, to grow, to speak life one another. And so, I have other siblings too, where I'm still working to build a relationship with. It's not perfect, I'm not saying like, all my 5 siblings I'm perfectly discipling. Trust me, no. Sometimes it's hard. It's really difficult. And personalities are different. Some siblings you just vibe more with. You guys are both extroverts, or your humor is the same. Some you're like, I don't even know how I'm related to you, but we gotta make this work. So it's a lot of work inside. And so, there's siblings that I tend to be more closer to because our personalities match, and so I have to be really intentional with the siblings that it's really hard for me to be around with. Like, I have to be extra intentional, like, let's go hang out, even if you don't want to hang out with me, or let's try to hang out, or try to meet them where they're at. It's just such a huge thing, is, especially if your siblings don't know the Lord, or they're still figuring out their walk with God, man, just be a friend. You don't, just be their friend. I tell them all the time, like, hey, I just want to be your sister. Can I just be your sister? Let's go hang out. You can offer, like, hey, do you want to talk about Jesus? Oh, okay. You're not ready for it.
I think that's why it's important to start within family, because if you want to grow in the Lord and be refined in whatever gift you have, family is the place to get refined, because it's the hardest, because it's the most challenging. I actually have a lot, like, I've met so many people that ask advice on siblings. So many people, like, hey, I have this one sibling, they're in depression. Hey, I have, like, a sister. I have a brother who's an atheist. I have this. Everyone, whatever the situation is, if it's like, oh, you guys fight, or they're like an atheist and they hate you, everyone across the board, be their friend. That's the first thing I do. I was like, do you hang out with them? Or are you busy telling them what's wrong with them? Are you their mom number 1? Because, like, or mom number 2, like, I'm sure their mom is already hating them and telling them what's wrong with them. They don't need another parent. They need a friend. They need a sibling. They need a sister or brother. Like, that's like one thing that I learned. There was a time where I started doing counseling, or like being in teens ministry, where the Lord convicted me. He's like, well, your brothers are teenagers. You don't have a relationship with them, but you're trying to impact other teenagers. And that's the moment I was like, my brother's playing Fortnite on his computer in his room. I'm going to walk in and be like, bro, this game is so sick. Tell me about it. Like, actually, I want to learn. And here's the thing. It was genuine. Because I wanted the relationship so much, I actually was invested in learning the controls and the terms and the lingo. It wasn't like pretend, because I actually did love him and I really wanted to build that relationship. My other brother, I'm like, what's up? Like, oh, you're into movies. What kind of movies did you watch today? Like, let's talk about movies. If that's where you're at, I'll meet you where you're at. And so, like, the first thing, like you already said, like, friendship, just be their friend, be their sibling, and those conversations of them opening up, they will happen naturally. And that's the easiest thing. You don't need to feel pressure that you need to be this counselor for your sibling. Be a friend. That's the most easiest thing ever. That's all you need to be. Just be a friend. If you could take away anything from this podcast, like it would be just be a friend.
Be a friend.
Be a friend.
You know, because we're so quick to like help and mentor, and you know, a big thing that I even noticed in my life that the Lord worked on me and is still working. It's like we want to change people so bad. I need to change you. I need to help you. I need to save you. And it's like, I'm the savior. It's like, no, I am not. God is.
Yeah.
And something I read in a book that really transformed my mindset and God really spoke to me was the biggest miracle isn't, you know, you changing people, is God changing you. The change in you. And so a lot of the times we're so quick, like, man, I want to see this transformation, or, you know, I want to see someone be saved. And, you know, I have siblings where I'm like, man, like, I want to see the Lord work in your life. But it's like, man, God, work on me. I'm struggling with my relationship with this person. Man, I'm not as loving. I literally, before I came here, I literally wrote in my journal, I was like, God, I do not trust my heart. I do not trust myself. Because
it's the most deceitful.
It's deceitful, like, you know, and I'm like, Lord, like, work on me. I'm nothing like Jesus, you know? And it's asking, like, Jesus, change me. Work on me. You know, work on my heart towards this person or towards my sibling or towards my family. You know, we're so quick to want to fix other people, where it's like the hardest work is actually inside of me.
Yeah,
you know,
it's I think it's the helper button.
Yeah.
It could trick us into wanting to change the world before we change ourselves, for sure.
Yeah, and the hardest thing is, you know, being changed and changing yourself. Like, a lot of it is like, it's not in my control. I can't really change myself. It's literally being so raw and vulnerable to the Lord. It's like, God, I cannot change myself. Change me. And waiting on the Lord to change you over time, over seasons. You know, the hardest thing is waiting. And it's something that I heard that is so powerful. Is I heard in a sermon, I don't remember exactly who quoted it, but it was, you know, we think that waiting is doing nothing, but it's the most important something that we do. Because most of our life is waiting on God to change us, to transform. Like, when you're born again, like, we're literally waiting for our resurrected bodies, for the Lord to come and, like, bring, like, the resurrection. Like, we're waiting to become like Jesus. We're being sanctified. It's not like here you are, sanctified, reformed.
Sanctification is a process.
It's a process. It's a journey. It is grueling. It is hard. And I don't want anyone to get any mistakes from listening to us. You know, we're both leaders. You know, we've been in ministry and God has blessed us both. But man, like, it is a lot of work to get here. It's still a lot of work to even keep going with the Lord. I met with my friends and we were confessing, and we're all going through things, really hard things. And me and my friend, I looked at my friend Katie and we're like, this is hard. I was like, walking with Jesus is hard. And I don't want anyone to get it wrong, to think that, you know, me and Karina we're both like, yeah, we're discipling and we're doing all these crazy things and we're so spiritual. Like, trust me. Like, I met up with my friends last week and we're all sitting together at my kitchen table and we're like in tears because we're like, it is hard right now. Yeah. You know, walking with the Lord is hard. Healing is hard. Discipleship is hard. Relationships are hard. Like, dying to the flesh is hard. Amen. You know, I saw with the Lord one time. I was like, God, the problem's me. It's, you know, I hit this season of life where I'm like, God, change my character. The core of who I am, change me, because I'm not like you. You know, I'm not like you enough, Lord. And so it's a lot. It's a painful process. It's dying to yourself. Christianity is no joke, and I'm sorry to say that. You know, it isn't easy. And God calls us to die to ourselves, to take up our cross and follow him. And so, again, it takes time. It really does. And so, warning, if you want to follow Jesus, it's not easy, but it is incredible. And God has been so good and so faithful to me and to you. And, you know, I can't express enough how grateful I am to God for what he's done in my life. But it's a lot of tears, a lot of prayers, a lot of changing that God had to do too. So.
Yeah, amen. When we talked earlier, you mentioned that there was like things that God is teaching you right now, or things that you're learning in your personal journey, like outside of like ministry and things like that. I was curious to hear about that. If you could share more of like what God has been teaching you, or what Christina brought props.
I read that.
So this is your chance
This
to.
is my advertisement.
I'm excited to hear. So like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think definitely the biggest thing that the Lord has been teaching me in this season, and we've touched on a lot of it. Like obviously, I've been getting mentored, I've been discipling, and then I've been having accountability partners, and that's been a big part of my season. But a big thing that has been really transforming me is actually called practicing beholding and abiding. And what that means is learning to come to prayer and before God without an agenda and just being there just to encounter God and to behold him. And so basically it's me coming to prayer. It's like, Lord, reveal yourself to me, speak to me, and I just want to look to you and allow you to look to me. Mm-hmm. And it's a prayer and a place of receiving from God. Mm-hmm. We see this a lot. It's almost like a worshiper's mindset. And we see this with Mary and Martha. Mary sitting at the feet of Jesus and just receiving from the Lord and coming there without an agenda, just to spend time with him and be with him without kind of her list of things. And so something that the Lord's been teaching me is to come to prayer for just him. Mm-hmm. No agenda, no list of requests or prayers or ambitions, of just, God, I just want to hear your voice. Mm-hmm. And speak to me in the silence. And so a lot of the books I have, they're kind of things that the Lord has ministered to me too, that I really recommend almost anybody to read. I am at this place of life where I know a lot of things and I'm passionate about knowledge. My dad's a pastor. He knows a lot. Books are a big thing of our life, and mm-hmm. I'm very passionate. Like, I believe in theology. I think theology is really important. Apologetics is a big passion of mine. And so a lot of my early years, I've spent accumulating quite a bit of knowledge. And I'm not against knowledge, but I've hit this point in life where I don't think knowledge is everything. I think experience is really practical and very important. And I believe truth needs to be encountered and experienced within you, where it becomes real, where you actually live it out, versus you just carry it in your head and you know all these right things, versus you actually living it out. So a lot of these books, they're actually very practical and very I'm big about application right now in my life. And so I think knowledge is great, but we gotta apply it and know how to live it out. So I'm in this place of life of sitting with the Lord and not doing a lot, or just being with him for just being with him, and knowing my identity as a daughter. So it's a lot of just sitting in silence, because even through words, I found that I was trying to control prayer. And so God was like, actually, you need to not talk, just sit with me. And so that was really hard, and it's still hard. I am a talker. I love to talk and love to express myself, and that's how I process things. But God's like, actually, like, be still. Be still like a child. And okay, so this was kind of what I was just talking about. This is called Beholding. I'm still reading it. I'm only in chapter 3, and I'm being wrecked. This book is called Beholding. It's called Deepening Our Experience in God. It's by Strahan Coleman. And again, it's just the whole idea of encountering God in a different way, sitting before the Lord like Mary, and just beholding him, seeing his beauty and wonder, and kind of stopping our prayer lives from being so transactional and so scripted. And so I'm trying to get this from God versus I'm just here for you, Lord. So it's a really, really awesome book. I haven't finished it yet, but it's been doing some really life-changing stuff in my life and in my heart, so highly recommend. Again, depending on your season of life or where you're at, but it's something that's been ministering to me. Another book, very similar, it's called Invitation to Silence and Solitude. It is by Ruth Haley Barton. Very similar, also practicing silence and solitude. Again, we depend so much on our words. Our culture is very loud. We're very hyper-verbal. We're always expressing ourselves, and learning to be almost like Elijah. The biggest inspiration for this book is Elijah, of sitting in a meeting and hearing the voice of God in the wilderness. So just encountering the Lord in a different way. Very awesome. Highly recommend. Very practical.
That's cool.
practices.
I'm always interested, like, I flip through always the contents to, like, see, I like this. Rest of the body, rest for the mind, rest for the soul.
Yeah, really awesome. Very holistic.
I like these.
Very holistic.
Yeah, I'll take pictures of these when
And this one...
I heard a lot about this.
This one is pretty big. A lot of people know. The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. I am a workaholic. I am a doer. I am a helper. Everything in me is go, go, go. So this was something I read during nursing school that God really convicted me about, and something that I'm trying to work in my own life is slowing down my life, being slow like Jesus, and to not have that mindset of constantly doing work, but also having a balance of rest too. But really awesome book. Highly recommend. It's also very, very, very practical steps and practices how to eliminate hurry.
I love that.
Yeah. Last book. This is for the women, ladies. My mentor actually recommended this book. A really, really awesome book. It's called Captivating, Unveiling the Mystery of a Woman's Soul. It's by John and Stacey Eldridge. There's actually a guy version. So this is the female version, and there's a guy version. I believe the guy version is called Wild at Heart. So this is kind of, the husband and wife kind of both wrote this together. Oh, wow. And so it's kind of supposed to work together. But this is just really awesome for, I believe every woman needs to read it, of just knowing your heart as a woman. Kind of the way God created us and formed us, and with just so much intentionality, our cry for beauty, for motherhood, for creativity. Really awesome. God really moved in this book to me, because I've been through my season where I was like, I'm a strong woman and I don't need no man and I'm tough and all these things. But God really showed me the beauty of our vulnerability, our creativity, and that it's in every woman's heart to be pursued. Like that's how God created us to be. And so really awesome book, really helpful, really important for even discipling women, I think. So super awesome book. Love it.
I love that you brought the actual books. This inspires me, because I also like to buy physical books rather than just like online. And this inspires me. I'm like, I should do an episode where like book recommendations, just for like the book nerds out there.
My heart, I know. And there's so many books that like have influenced even my walk with Jesus. Like I was sitting with my friends, I'm like, oh my goodness, there's so many books that like shaped me so much. And these are just some from my current season of life. There's so many where I can recommend for like new believers, and if you want to learn about disciple making, there's so many awesome like powerful books to read. And
it's interesting because every person that I talk to has their own like if I ask, like, I feel like everyone who I'm doing an episode with is like a book reader, and each person has their own like, this is the book you need to read, or this is the book that changed me, or this is the book that impacted Paulina versus you versus me versus like Andre versus like my husband. Like it's all so different, and like I can't say that my book list is the one, because like you have so much, like such a great list, and Paulina has such a great list. So it would be interesting to like put a list together and then do like a video on
each
that.
Each person's like own list.
Yeah, I'd be like, hey, if you're in this season, this is for you. If you're in this season, this is for you.
I highly recommend. I know some people aren't readers, or like if you aren't a reader, like listen to an audiobook, but there's so much wisdom, and like God speaks through it too. And I've been so ministered through reading, and I just love books so much, and I'm a big fan. And I've learned a lot. And I think a big thing that I just encourage is don't read for the sake of just gaining more knowledge, but I really do pray, like, you know, that we live our knowledge, that we live the truth out. You know, in James it talks about the man who knows, he stares in the mirror and he forgets his own face. You know, like, let us not just know the truth, but let's live it out. You know, and apply it, and, you know, do what we say we do versus just saying that we're doing it.
That's good. Good stuff. People don't know that we've been recording for like an hour and a half, and we actually have to wrap up because we're getting kicked out of the Airbnb. Well, not kicked out, but we can't film any longer. And I know we could have like filmed for another 2 hours, and like that's what I love about like this conversation is not just something we have for the podcast. Like, these are conversations we've been having for years.
Yeah.
And we have them all the time. And I wanted people to see like what kind of friendships and relationships they could have. And I'm like, I'm gonna turn on and cry. But I'm super thankful for our friendship, Christina. Like, I've received a lot from you. And like, I don't know, it's so cool to also see your journey. I do feel like we're peers. I don't feel like there's some kind of like, your journey is so different, so special. I think there's so much more we could have talked. There's so much more value that you have that you just haven't had a chance to share, which is like, that makes me think like there has to be a part 2 with everyone that I do this with, because like everyone's a talker and we just like, But I just wanted to say thank you also to you for being obedient to the Lord, and like for being such a good friend to me. It's not just because like you're my cousin, it's you're a friend, and to see your journey with the Lord is also beautiful. And like it makes me happy that there's like there's like, they have people in my life that have such a genuine relationship with Jesus, because it's also like very encouraging to me and motivating, so
100%.
Yeah, but I love you, and I just wanted
like my co-laborer, co-mentor.
Yeah, it's like
it's so
cool.
cool.
Everything. It's so cool to know that we could be like friends and be silly, and then also have like similar interests in art and things like that, and then also like both be counselors.
I love it, and it's like it's so crazy because we've done ministry together, like, but you left a little bit before me, but like we were in the same ministry, and like we've grown up to, like, it's such a blessing. And like, again, I totally agree. Like, I've never felt like there's some like difference spiritually with us. Like, it's always been like, man, we're in this together. Like, I remember when I was discipling, I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, Karina, help me. Like, we've just been there for each other, and I love it. And I love you, and I'm so proud of you, and so like excited for this season of your life and what the Lord is doing. It's so different and new, and you stepping out in obedience. I'm so excited. I'm cheering you on, and I love you so much.
Thank you.
Best.
Thanks for doing this. And I like to start with a story to like relax the guest. But I'm like, okay, what can I talk to like ease you and stuff like that? And I'm like, we have so many stories.
I know. I was actually like coming here and I was thinking like, remember like random things we've done, but I was actually particularly remembering like us as kids and you like directing us like little pawns. You're like like leading us, and I was like, I literally was like changing. I was like, oh my gosh,